Hi, everyone. I'm Dipti Desai, board member of IIT Bay Area Alumni Organization, and it is my honor, privilege, and a pleasure to introduce Dheeraj Pandey. Dheeraj, like many of you, is an IIT graduate. He obtained his BTech in computer science from IIT Kanpur, and I won't tell you when. I first had the opportunity to meet Dheeraj when we invited him as a speaker at TiCon back in 2015, I think, or so. He was a founder of Nutanix when it was still a startup. He was possibly around 6 years old or so, but it was already a unicorn. And since then, what Dheeraj has accomplished with Nutanix is such an amazing story that we brought him back year after year as a speaker till Nutanix went public. Today, Dheeraj is on to his next adventure, and he's going to talk about that. He is a philanthropist, an investor. He has founded Paramhansa Values Fund and also Paramhansa Philanthropies. So startup entrepreneurs, take note, because if you have an amazing idea, it could be funded by him. He's also on the Council of Trustees for TIE, which I'm also part of as a board member. He's a serial entrepreneur. And even more newsworthy is that he has a new baby. Yes, a new venture, a new startup, DevRev, a developer customer relationship management or dev CRM platform that empowers developers to build and support and grow their business through code. So I'm sure at some time in the future you'll hear about that. But today he's really going to talk about something incredible. But before I talk about what he's going to talk about, what I find is truly remarkable about Dheeraj, that his new startup, DevRev, was able to attract seed funding of 50 million, I feel, even before it was born, which speaks volumes about him as a founder. Dheeraj devotes just as much time and focused attention to his family as he does for his startups. And many of you will know, and I know this from personal life, that how difficult it is to achieve that balance. He has a lovely, talented, and very accomplished spouse, Sapna, and their 3 children, 2 twin daughters, and a super sharp son. And to me, I think his knowledge on everything really rivals Dheeraj's. So please join me in giving a really, really warm welcome to Dheeraj Pandey as he talks about something that is very important to us: career, an infinite game, and the power of 3, which is grit, equity, and curiosity in all things career and life. So Dheeraj, off to you. You're
Thank
going
you.
so.
Thank you so much for such a gracious introduction. I don't know if I'll live up to the balance piece with my wife, because we constantly talk about that all the time. So, and thanks to everybody for being here. It's Dipti and I were talking about physical versus virtual and what gives you more energy. And I think I definitely derive more energy when I see people in an audience and such. So in the absence of that, while we're doing this in Zoom, I hope I do justice to something here. So I have a presentation, and it's going to have a couple of videos as well. So hope it actually works out for everybody who are joining from India and Europe and the rest of the country here in the US. Okie dokie. So here is basically some lessons while I was building stuff, building Nutanix, building my career before that, and also just building relationships, building my rapport with customers. There's a lot that I learned from and with these heroes. So rather than speak about my purpose, I said, what are you going to talk about this idea of purposeful innovation through the eyes of my heroes? And I'm a very visual thinker, and I figured it's best if we could talk about my heroes through some videos, through some audio clips just as much. So that's what we're going to do in the next 20 odd minutes. Now, I latched onto the word purpose from purposeful innovation because it's one of my favorite words. People have heard me speak. I talk about Dan Pink and his 3 pillars of motivation. He talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So the thing, this talk, it forced me to think hard about the word purpose itself. I look at Warren Buffett, and 90% of his wealth came between his ages of 65 and 90. So last 25 years is when he made 90% of his wealth. He's basically, 10x'd his life after 65. And obviously people know Vinod here, I learn so much from him almost every day. He's pushing me to think hard about AI and, open AI and Codex and, how can DevRev start to really go and really help developers through even more autonomous coding and programming and things like that. But, this is a thing I can put a list of so many people out there who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, Charlie Munger is another person who actually, if you think about, is still so relevant and so sagacious, even in his 90s. And this is one of my favorite quotes from James Clear. He talks about you should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. So we'll speak about a couple of my heroes here. And one of my heroes, Simon Sinek, he just inspires me every time I hear him talk. Some of you might have seen me retweet his stuff on LinkedIn and other social media. And the word purpose comes up all the time for him. When he said why, it basically means purpose. He talks about starting with why. He talks about the purpose of leadership, the purpose of an infinite game, purpose of competition. There's a lot of purpose in what he says. And then one of my other authors who I constantly try to remind myself and his book and his writings on it, James Clear. And he talks about these infinitesimal steps you need to take as you pursue your purpose. Very, very important, to really think about the power of tiny gains, the fact that the habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So there's the infinite part of purpose and there's this infinitesimal part of purpose. How do you really go and do this 1% at a time? Very, very important in terms of purpose. So in the next 10 minutes, you'll hear from three of my heroes. And, one of them is Alex Honnold. Some of you might have seen his documentary on National Geographic. There's a lot of discipline in purpose, a lot of grit in purpose. And let's take a listen to his life. And he went and started to do free solo, at least said, look, I'm going to challenge myself to really climb El Capitan without a rope. And that's the idea of a free solo. So let's take a listen to Alex's life and how he has used discipline and grit for his purpose.
Does it feel different to be up there without a rope?
It's obviously like much higher consequence.
People who know a little bit about climbing, they're like, oh, he's totally safe. And then people who really know exactly what he's doing are freaked out.
I've thought about El Cap for years, and every year I'm like, that's really scary. I'll never be content unless I at least put in the effort. El Cap is the most impressive wall on Earth.
It's 3,200 feet of sheer granite. It's the center of the rock climbing universe.
Obviously, I get interview questions about it all the time. Oh, would you like to do that? And you're like, yes, for sure.
So you have a girlfriend now, I heard.
It was awesome. Pretty much makes life better in every way.
It's really hard for me to grasp why he wants this. But if he doesn't do this stuff, he'd regret it.
Everybody who has made free soloing a big part of their life is dead now.
I haven't been injured in 7 years. I suddenly start getting injured all the time.
What if something happens? What if I don't see him again?
I could just walk away, but it's I don't want to.
I've always been conflicted about shooting a film about free soloing just because it's so dangerous. It's hard to not imagine your friend falling through the frame to his death.
I think when he's free soloing, that's when he feels the most alive, most everything. How can you even think about taking that away from somebody?
No mistakes tomorrow.
I'm starting to get kind of psyched.
If you're pushing the edge, eventually we find the edge.
I can't believe you guys are actually gonna watch. Hey Jimmy, do you copy? Just started climbing.
I've watched this clip hundreds of times, and the documentary behind it at least 10 times. And we watch this off and on, including at DevRev. We just did this in Bangalore, and it just gives everybody the goosebumps. It's a great culture creator, this idea of discipline, grit, and purpose. And just love the line, if you're pushing the edge, eventually you'll find the edge. And this is true for any pursuit that you have, any venture, any enterprise you're pursuing. It's so important to figure out what discipline and grit mean in purpose. Now, here is my second hero. Her name is Yui Rosequist. And the next video that you'll watch together is really about equality in purpose and how it builds great companies if you actually have the sense of egalitarianism, and how that inclusion leads to fearlessness and great companies. So let's take a listen to this video as well.
November 4, 1962. The Argentinian Grand Prix begins. One of the world's toughest races, attracting the world's toughest men. The race with a history of death and crashes. Out of all the cars, only 43 drivers made it to the end. And one of those drivers made history. The first driver to beat the record speed at 126 kilometers per hour. The first driver to finish 3 hours before everyone. And the first driver to prove women could win the Grand Prix. Me, Yui Rosequist. They say I could never finish, so I finished first.
Another one of those videos that gives me goosebumps all the time, every time I watch this. And it's become even more of a personal thing for me as I see my twin daughters grow and learn to tinker with stuff. There's so much that they could actually do in the world of computing, computer science, mathematics, biotech, life sciences. And I'd love to actually have them enter a world that's really a first among equals. And it's really important for all of us. There's entrepreneurs in us, they're managers, they're engineers, they're peers. There are all sorts of people in this audience who really need to think about equality being a core competitive advantage. Again, one of these really telling sentences in the video, when she says, they said I could never finish, so I finished first. Keep that in mind as you think about what purpose means for you in your venture. And it's really important, as I said, inclusion really makes for fearless heroes as well. And these are the heroes that will go and build your company, your venture, your project, your whatever pursuit that you're actually going after. And one of the examples, one of my favorite fearless heroes is Olive. And she gave me this sort of farewell gift when I was stepping away from Nutanix. And every time I actually think about Olive, like, she was so precise, so rigorous in everything that she did, and yet she was fearless. And the reason why she was so fearless and was really willing to give everything to Nutanix was because she was included. And that's what I mean by figuring out what our purpose needs to be and how we need to really get equality to be part of that framework for our purpose itself. Now, the last one, which is really ethics in purpose, like how do you really think about ethics? I've been doing a lot of reading off late in the last year, at least, on biology, biotech, life sciences, and it's just a fascinating field. And I'm sure some of you have actually heard about the breakthrough invention in CRISPR. But let's take a listen. Let's watch this video together, and we'll talk about at least how I'm learning, and I mean, just becoming a rookie one more time when it comes to things beyond software.
Mother Nature gave us something that's richer than our imagination.
We saw a very peculiar pattern.
Never seen anything like this before.
I remember him saying, remember this word, CRISPR.
We've never had the ability to change the fundamental chemical nature of who we are, and now we do. And what do we do with that?
David's doctor told me, just hold on, there's something coming.
You can actually use CRISPR to change DNA. You can actually do it.
We could engineer a single gene that could potentially make us all more muscular. But should we make that universally available?
Что человек может создавать человека, человек, который может воевать без страха и без боли. И вот то, о чем я сейчас сказал, может быть страшнее ядерной бомбы.
Should we really be manipulating the heredity of future generations, given our lack of knowledge about so many things?
I don't know where you draw the line between not having albinism and deciding your kid needs to be an extra foot taller so they can be a good oarsman and go to Yale. Where is that line? Who's going to draw that?
Anything that will stop my child from suffering, I'm for.
You know, draw this ethical line wherever you want, but don't draw it in front of my disease.
What does that mean for this science, where we have the capacity to edit in some things that we think are important? Are we playing God?
You don't realize it's disruptive until you look backward. Often you don't realize that you're in the middle of a revolution until after the revolution has occurred.
This documentary on Netflix just changed my overall thinking about how much do I need to read and learn. And I started reading a lot after this. The more I heard about CRISPR, and of course, we all went through COVID, and the more we learned about mRNA, and by the way, these are going to compete for eyeballs and research dollars and everything, because mRNA and CRISPR are two different ways to achieve very similar things. And there's a third one in there called CAR-T as well. But the point I wanted to bring out with this video was how, again, my heroes, Nobel laureates, Jennifer Doudna, Emmanuel Charpentier, you know, they have had to grapple with this thing of how much to do in here in this field, and where do you stop? And you heard this line, are we playing God? And, you know, it's going to be a very important piece of the question that our children will have to go and answer. You know, this is a fascinating era for computing and biotech to actually, you know, we're going to blur the lines between the two, and we're going to do a lot of things through synthetic biology. I mean, mRNA in many ways is a 3D printed RNA of the virus that we actually going to inject through nanolipid particles. We can go and edit genes and things of that nature. So ethics will play a very important role in this, and it will require a lot of courage and clarity. And I think the reason why I like this so much is because this made me really redefine how little I knew about what was going around and what the next 30, 40 years will be. And speaking of redefinition, I want you all to take a listen to this, one of my favorite podcasts on reinvention that is equally telling for what this infinite game of purpose and career really is.
And some of our listeners haven't lived through all the generations of Netflix. Now we know what Netflix is. Oh my goodness, it's a big producer, it's a channel, it's a this, it's a that. And it started out mailing DVDs to people.
In the little red envelope.
And then you could get some more when you send them back. And they were in the stores, and then what happened to those? And then DVDs, whatever happens, they were like, okay, we're going to be a little ahead of that technology. And, they could have made some really bad bets. They probably did do some, and we don't know about them. But what really truly strikes me about what you're talking about, having gone through this break, if you will, with the pandemic, whether you were employed or not, whether you were thinking of doing something and changing, I think it's caused us all to reflect, what am I really doing? Where should I go from here? What stamina do I have? If I have to redefine who I am in the world, who am I and how do I get my mojo back? How do I do that?
Redefining ourselves is a thing that we need to do constantly. And Silicon Valley has been predicated on what's often referred to, the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter talked about creative destruction, that we invent new things to destroy what came before. And that's actually how we evolve and grow as a society and in business. But that's also true for us as individuals. And so as leaders, we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to grow and change? And the best example of this that I ever saw was Katrina Lake. Katrina is the chairman and founder of Stitch Fix. And she asks her, team every year, if you were hiring for your job today, would you hire yourself? And when you ask that in a room full of executives, you've never seen so many people lose color in their faces, right? Because it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, have I stayed current? And I think you have to have a natural curiosity to understanding what's happening outside of the four walls of your company. And you have to have that desire to learn new things. But I'm lucky. I get to teach men and women who come from all over the world, and they're between the ages of 25 and 40, and I get to learn from them with a fresh set of eyes how they look at the opportunities and the ways technology can create business opportunities and social opportunities. And so I think you have to have that mindset that not only are you willing to learn new things, but that you enjoy learning new things, and you enjoy kind of getting rid of what you've been doing before and embracing trying new ways to accomplish certain objectives. It's kind of like crustaceans, Moira. Crustaceans, they have to actually molt their shells in order to grow. If you think about that, they can't grow without molting their shells. And I think that's a lot like humans. We have to sometimes let go about that which that we've built around us, that which has protected us, so that we can grow and try new things. And when you go through that, it's scarier. And all of a sudden you've got to say, I'm not the expert anymore. I'm a rookie. And that's very, very hard for senior leaders. But actually it can be very liberating, because sometimes you can let go of the past. You might see new things and new opportunities right in front of you.
Extremely telling. Just think about the kind of things that COVID has made a lot of us ask. And it made me ask, what does it mean for me to be a rookie again? And this is one of the reasons why I actually did DevRev, because I didn't think I was being current in the way business software, in the way computing was headed. And I felt like, this need for a stamina to go and redefine myself was very, very important. Again, a really, really important question. If you're hiring for your job today, would you hire yourself? That we all have to ask ourselves as we really go in pursuit of our purpose. And one of my favorite sentences from that podcast, this is with Robert Siegel talking to Dr. Moira Gunn in the Tech Nation. So if you go and Google for the Tech Nation, Dr. Moira Gunn with Robert Siegel, this is at minute number 31. And there's 15-20 minutes of fascinating conversation about reinvention. What does it mean to reinvent? And how does it happen in nature? How does it happen in businesses? And how does it happen in careers as well? So with that, I'm going to summarize this. The three heroes that we, at least 4 or 5 of my heroes that you heard from, it was all around reinvention of purpose, the grit in purpose, the discipline, conviction in purpose, and finally the need for ethics and curiosity in purpose. Really, really important as we go and think about purposeful innovation. So I'm going to leave you with one question, last question, that all of us should ask ourselves. Have I stayed current? Have I stayed current with myself and my promises? Am I constantly refining my habits in these infinitesimal steps that are really going to compound towards what I believe I need to be every day, different, improved? And then lastly, every once in a while, am I redefining myself? Because that is the infinite game. Thank you.
Thank you, Dheeraj. What an amazing session. Every time I hear Dheeraj, there's so many things we learn new. And I know that many of us will be watching this video again and again, because there's so many nuggets of information, so much nugget and information of growth, personal growth, professional growth that we can glean from as we keep going. I know we are at time now. There is one question. Dheeraj, would you like to take that? It says,
let's do it.
Yeah. What advice do you have for people who have great ideas, but not the resourcefulness to build? What resources are out there to build on that, to have a business plan?
The word stamina, by the way, is really important for that, because most of the world will tell you not to do something. And it's really testing you to see whether you really have the conviction to pursue that. So it's a rite of passage. You know, there will be 99% naysayers, maybe 0.9% fence-sitters and 0.1% believers when you start something, and you will be tested through this, you know, and that's basically the grit and the conviction and the stamina that one needs to pursue something. There's also the word jugaad, which is really one of my favorite words, and I'm sure a lot of people here will relate to the word jugaad. It's resourcefulness. And in fact, there is a bird in hand sort of thinking that goes with entrepreneurship. And apparently a lot of entrepreneurs, including I'm sure myself, we use this subconsciously all the time. The bird in hand mentality is, how do you really go look at everything around you, the people that you know, the ideas that you have, the experiences that you've gained in the last 10 years, and how do you leverage that? Becomes a very important part of this overall jugaad that really creates companies and takes ideas to products. It's really, really important. And of course, you need to know people who know other people. So if you feel like you have some ideas, you know, shoot it to people like me as well, and I can connect you with the right folks if I can't invest myself, either through our fund or through our family foundation.
Thank you, Dheeraj. You're an inspiration to all of us here, and learned a lot today on trajectories and purpose and the why, the most important why, and habits and discipline, grit, quality, very important. And it's very happy to say that we have a number of women leaders as part of our IIT Bay Area organization. You know, IIT is well known for having a very low admittance, I wouldn't say admittance, very few women in their campuses. And it's good to see that a large portion of the leadership team here is made up of women. So thank you for bringing equality into the equation and defining that edge and pushing the edge and blazing the trail. Lots of great inspirational, nuggets over here that we will treasure forever. So thank you, Dheeraj, again, and thank you, Bay Area.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dheeraj and Dipti. Some really thought-provoking, eye-opening, jolty questions. And of course, the word jugaad, a very seemingly trivial word, but very, very important.